This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, shalom everyone, bruchim abam. Today's our first Shiur after Yom Tov, so welcome back. And so I want to dedicate today's learning to my grandfather, Harav Mordechai Leib ben Harav Yosef Menachem. Today is the first day of Shiva. My grandfather was nifter on the first day of Pesach, Tesvav Benisan. Chazal say, B'Tesvav Benisan Nigalu, B'Tesvav Benisan Asidan Ligael. So certainly my grandfather was among the great Mitzapim Yeshua, and we should all be zocheh to see the Yeshua and the Geula B'Karayv. Rabbi Moskowitz, could you mute everyone because the phone is making a lot of noise? Is there a way to do that? Okay, so we're going to start off by speaking about Isru Chag. What exactly is Isru Chag? What is the Kedusha of Isru Chag? What is the objective of Isru Chag? What is the role of Isru Chag in the aftermath of Yom Tov? Is there any makar that it has any significance? So the Gemara says in Sukkah, on Memhei Amud Beis, Amar of Yirmiyah, Kol ha'oiseh Isur l'chag. Anyone who makes a binding for the Yom Tov, ba'achilo shtia, with eating and drinking, mala olav hakasav ki'ilu bana mizbeach. It is considered as if you built an altar, v'hikriv olav carbon, and you brought a sacrifice on it. Shenemar, isru chag ba'avoisim ad karnois hamizbeach. So the Gemara says, anyone who makes an isur to the chag, binds the chag, it's as if you built a mizbeach, and you were makriv a carbon. Now, what is this referring to? What is this talking about? Isru Chag. So Rashi says in the first pshat, Aguda l'chag. You make a binding to the Yom Tov, ba'achila ushsiya shekoire l'chag oineg b'maichel mishta. Rashi in his first pshat and his primary pshat says Isru Chag means eating and drinking on Yom Tov proper. Nothing to do with the day after Yom Tov. Nothing to do with what we refer to as Isru Chag. Isru Chag is you bind yourself to the Yom Tov through enjoyment of achilo shtia. However, then Rashi brings a Yesh Oimrim. He says Rashi Yesh Oimrim Yoim Shel Achar Chag. Some say it refers to the day after Yom Tov. Ba'avoisim behemois avois ushmeinois. You eat fatty, plump animals, meat. So according to Rashi's second shot, you attach yourself to the Chag through achilas behemois shmeinois by being koivei asuda. And anybody who's koivei asuda on Isru Chag with basar, then it's considered as if you bound yourself to the Yom Tov. It's considered like the Yom Tov itself. Now, what's Rashi referring to? To eat meat in the day after Sukkot, or the day after one of the Shalosh Regalim. So the Aruch HaShulchan, again, according to the first pshat in Rashi, Isru Chag refers to enjoyment on Yom Tov proper. According to the second pshat, it means to connect yourself to the Yom Tov in the aftermath of the Yom Tov. So the Aruch HaShulchan has a very unique take on this. It says Aruch HaShulchan, Siman Tav Chav Tes Sif Hey, that when you're mesameach on Yom Tov, l'shem shamayim, the ikar simcha on Yom Tov was achilas shlamim. What the achilas shlamim? You would bring karbanos and you'd be mesameach with your family, and your physical senses would be awakened, and you would eat the shlamim every day. Now the achilas shlamim, the zman achilas shlamim is shnei yomim v'layla echad. So, since they would eat and bring shlamim every day, that included the last day of Yom Tov. So if they brought karbanos on the last day of Yom Tov, the achila of those karbanos would extend to the following day. So it was as if you were misameach not only that day, but the day after as well. So the Aruch HaShulchan has a very unique understanding of Isru Chag. It does not refer to being misameach in the day after Yom Tov. It's just that the achila shlamim of the final day of Yom Tov, it continued for the day after, because the achila shlamim was for 2 days and 1 night. And by the way, this reason is also mentioned by Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz in his Sefer Sar Ha'elav, Siman Tav Chav Tes of Kata Daled, that because the Shlamim was Nechal, L'shnei Yomim, V'layla Echad, so they would bring karbanos on the last day of Sukkos, or Pesach, or Shavuos, and the Zman Achila extended for the following day. Therefore, it's usher to fast on that day, and according to that reason, Isru Chag would equally apply to all the Yomim Tovim. Now, where does this pshat come from? The second pshat of Rashi, that there's a concept of Isru Chag, that one is supposed to enjoy the day after Yom Tov. So it seems to be based on a Yushalmi. Yushalmi is an Avodah Zarah, Parak Aleph, Soif Halacha Aleph. In the Yushalmi we find that in the Mishnah says in Avodah Zarah, 3 days before the festival of the Goyim, you're not allowed to work, you're not allowed to do business with them. And Rabbi Shmuel says even in the 3 days after. Now, V'chavraya nasan tam l'Rabbi Yishmael shehu mishum beria d'mayada. What does this mean? The Pnei Moshe says, after their Yom Tif, they make a simcha, and they enjoy in the Suda the Mayed. Therefore, Rabbi Yishmael assered the days after, just like the Yom Tif itself. Says Yushalmi, let's bring a raya to this position, because we find in Nehemiah that Bnei Yisrael, when they returned from the Galus, they were Mekayim Rosh Hashanah, they were Mekayim Sukkos, and then it says on the 24th day of Tishrei, it says they gathered to fast and to cry and to wear sackcloth and to put dirt on them and to confess their sin. So Yishalmi says, why the 24th? Why not the 23rd? After all, the 21st is Hoshana Rabbah, the 22nd is Shmini Atzeres, and the 23rd is nothing. Why didn't they fast on the 23rd? It says, Yushalmi, Beria D'Mayada. The Pnei Moshe explains, they were Mesameach on the day after Sukkos. So we see the day after Sukkos is Shayach to the Yom Tif. This is the Makar for what we know as Isru Chag. This second shad of Rashi is sourced in the Yushalmi and Avodah Zarah, that the 23rd day of Tishrei was also a day of Yom Tif because they continued to rejoice on the Yom Tif. Now, there is considerable discussion in the Rishonim whether Isru Chag applies only to Shavuos, because that was the day that they would sometimes be makriv the karbanos of Shavuos, or whether it applies to all the Yomim Tovim. But the Ramah, who codifies this halacha, seems to say that this concept of Isru Chag applies equally to all the Yom Tovim. So let's try to study a little bit. What is the concept of Isru Chag? Why do we need a day after Yom Tif? The Yom Tif was pretty significant. It was 7 days in Eretz Yisrael, 8 days in Chutz Haaretz. What is the concept of Isru Chag? So it would seem that it's similar to that which the Gemara says in Sukkah on Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis, that Atzeres that the Rebbeinu Shalom says, by Shmini Atzeres, it's so difficult for me to depart from you, Kasha alai predaschem. So, similar to that, it's hard for us to take leave from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to go straight into a regular weekday, a regular work day, a day of Chulin, and we have this quasi-Yom Tiv called Isru Chag. But I'd like to share with you some really remarkable ideas about the concept of Isru Chag, the continuation of Yom Tif, and its particular importance when it comes to the aftermath of Pesach. Let's begin with the Chasam Sofer. The Chasam Sofer is found in the Torah Moshe, Parshas Pinchas, and the Chasam Sofer says like this, that we know that the simcha that a person engenders and experiences when performing a mitzvah is greater than the mitzvah itself. In other words, what is a person rewarded for more? Doing the mitzvah or the simcha that they feel when they perform the mitzvah? Chasam Sofer says, the simcha that one has when one performs the mitzvah is greater than the schar for the mitzvah itself. And therefore, a person is always mechuyev when they perform a mitzvah to be misameach that they were zoicha to do the mitzvah and to make a suda that they were zoicha to do the mitzvah. Says Chasam Sofer, in his opinion, this is the concept of Yom Tov Sheni Shal Galiyos. Why do we have a second day of Yom Tif in Galus? Says Chasam Sofer, because it actually we're required to be happier on Yom Tif in the Galus than we are in Eretz Yisrael. Says Chasam Sofer, you keep Yom Tif in Eretz Yisrael, big deal. It doesn't warrant such simcha. So what? You kept Yom Tov in Eretz Yisrael. It's a Jewish country. It's our country. It's Artzeinu HaKdosha. Big deal. You kept Yom Tov in Eretz Yisrael. However, says Chasam Sofer, it is certainly better. It is certainly warrants more simcha to if somebody kept Yom Tif in Chutz La'aretz. To keep Yom Tif in Chutz La'aretz where there's persecution and there's anti-Semitism and you have liberals and you have a defunded police and crazy governors, to keep a Yom Tif in Chutz La'aretz. Wow. That deserves great simcha. That deserves great happiness and joy. Therefore, says Chasam Sofer, in Chutz La'aretz, you need to make a Yom Tif that you are zoicha to keep Yom Tif. Yom Tif Sheni Shalgolius it's such a zechus, it's such a happiness to have the opportunity to keep Yom Tif in Galus, and there's no Spanish Inquisition, and there are no Cossacks who want to come into your home, and there are no crusaders. It's such a simcha to keep Yom Tif in Chutz La'aretz. You need to make a Yom Tif that you're zoicha to keep Yom Tif. People go to Eretz Yisrael for Yom Tif. No, you should go to Chutz La'aretz for Yom Tif. It's a bigger zechus to be in Galus and keep a Yom Tif. That's why in Chutz La'aretz there's a greater simcha on Yom Tif than in Eretz Yisrael, says Chasam. By the way, Chasam Sofer holds that when Mashiach comes, you're going to keep 2 days Yom Tif in Eretz Yisrael. Even Eretz Yisrael nickers are going to keep 2 days when Mashiach comes. Zecher to the Galus. Now they could get off easy. They only have to keep 1 day. When Mashiach comes, Chasam Sofer writes that everyone is going to keep 2 days. Zecher to those who were Zeicher to keep Yom Tov in the Galus. Therefore, says Chasam Sofer, in Chutz La'aretz, since Yom Tov is a greater joy than Eretz Yisrael, we have a second day of Yom Tov. But when the Beis HaMikdash stood, and we're B'Artzeinu HaKdosha, we don't have to make Yom Tov Sheni. All we do is we make a shtickle Isru Chag. Okay, so after Yom Tov, make a shtickle party, have some extra basar the next day that you're zoicha to keep the Yom Tov. But in the Golus, not only do we have Isru Chag, we have a Yom Tov that we're zoicha to keep the first day. That's the idea of Isru Chag. Since every mitzvah warrants celebration, the celebration that you're zoicha to keep Yom Tov is Isru Chag, and in Chutz La'aretz, it's an actual extra day of Yom Tov. Comes the Bnei Yissaschar in the Sefer Agra de Perka. Wow, what a coincidence. We're learning the Agra de Perka in the Koilel Agra de Perka. And Rav Tzvi Elimelech of Dinov comments on the Ramban on Shir HaShiurim. The Pasuk says in Shir HaShiurim, Im ta'iru v'im ta'iru es ha'ava ad shetechpatz. If you will arouse and you will awaken the love until it's concretized. The Ramban writes on Shir HaShiurim, when a person has an inspiration of Avas Hashem, it is fleeting. It can dissipate very easily. One has to make sure that they concretize and they solidify the inspiration of Avas Hashem and translate it and transform it into a chayfetz, into action. Because very often you go to, you hear a shiur, you hear a drasha, you experience hisayrus, and you say to yourself, this is so inspiring, I want to change, I want to do something. But unless you actually translate it into action, it will dissipate. Therefore, the pasuk says, Im ta'iru v'im ta'iru es ha'ahava. If you arouse and awaken your love, ad shetechbatz, until it is formalized and translated into a chayfetz, into a davar sheyesh by mamish. Says the Agra de Perka that this concept is played out by many of the Yomim Tovim. Why is Shavuos called Atzeres? Because the awe and the Yiras Haroimimus and the love that Klal Yisrael achieved at Matan Torah needed to be translated into something concrete, needed to be confined into a davar sheyesh by mamish. So therefore Hashem said, okay, you are inspired now, you are aroused, you have Yiras Haroimimus, so now we're going to translate that, we're going to concretize it into the mitzvah of Hagbel Esahar, Loisiga Bayad, the mitzvah of separating for 3 days. And this will be the kli to translate all of your Ava and your Yira. Therefore, says the Agad Perka, here we experienced the Yom Tif, and we were very elevated. And we had the opportunity to daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to bless us with all the blessings of the Moyed. By the way, we say to Hashem, B'hasiyenu Hashem Elokeinu es birkas mayadecha. Bless us, God, with the blessings of your Moyed. By the way, every bracha needs an Amen to confirm it. So how do we confirm all the blessings of Pesach? So Hashem gives us Parsha Shmini. How many psukim in Parsha Shmini? 91. Gematria Amen. That's the Amen for all the brachos of Pesach. That's the confirmation for all the brachos of Pesach. But here we experienced the Yom Tif, and we were elevated, and we said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Sein chalkeinu b'soyer asecha. Please, Hashem, give us a big chunk of your Torah. Make our lot in life such that we should have many opportunities to learn your Torah. We're very elevated from the Yom Tif. But unless we translate that into something tangible, that will dissipate. So that's the concept of Isru Chag, says the Agad Perka. What we do is we take all of our inspiration and all of our elevation, we want to tie it down to something concrete, so we have a day after Yom Tif to focus on all of our elevation, all of our inspiration, as a way of bringing it to materialization. Im ta'iru v'im ta'iru es ha'ahava ad shetechbatz. Then we have the Chidushay Harim. Chidushay Harim, quote in the Shas Chus, Bikurei Shloimai. Many of the sources that I'm telling you come from an article that was in Yeshurun in the 26th edition, in an article written by Reb Chaim Yitzchak Parosh. He brings that on Isru Chag, on Yom Tif, Klal Yisrael was very elevated. They had many holy machshavos, and one might think, as you enter the weekdays, you're going to forget everything. So David HaMelech says, Isru Chag, tie it. Tie the Yom Tif even during the week, so that during the week you don't forget all of your inspiration and all of your Hisairos. Similarly, Reb Simcha Bun of Parshascha said that it's like if you have a thread of pearls. If it's not tied at the edge, if you don't have a knot at the end, they're all in danger of falling off. So too, when Yom Tif is over, unless you, so to speak, make a knot at the end, then all of the acquisitions and all the spiritual attainments of Yom Tif are in danger of dissipating. Rosh Zalman Auerbach compared Isru Chag to, he gave the following analogy. This is found in the Halicha Shloimai, the end of Hilchos Sukkos. He says that, the Gemara says in Brachas Daf Lamed Beis, someone who davens needs to wait an hour after their tefillah, so to speak, come back to earth in order to be able to integrate back into regular living. You need to delay an hour between tefillah and getting back to your regular activities. So that's the concept of Isru Chag, is, so to speak, analogous to that Sha'achas Achar HaTfilah. So I want to share with you a very interesting Tosfos. Tosfos is found in Pesachim, Daf Kuf Beis Amud Beis. Tosfos has the following question. We know that Matzah Yom Tif, last night when you made Havdalah, you did not smell Besamim. That seems to indicate that we know we smell Besamim Matzah Shabbos, because on Shabbos you have a Neshama Yisera, and you're despondent when the Neshama Yisera is lost, and therefore we smell Besamim to sort of perk your mood, Matzah Shabbos. But the fact that we don't smell Besamim, Matzah Yom Tif, that seems to indicate that we don't have a neshama yisera on Yom Tov. So if that's the case, ask Tosfos, why is it that Motzei Shabbos going into Yom Tov, we don't smell besamim? If Yom Tov does not have neshama yisera, we all know that, for example, this year, the first day of Pesach was Motzei Shabbos. When you made Havdalah in Kiddush the first night of Pesach, did you smell besamim? No, why not? If Yom Tov doesn't have Neshama Yisera, then you should smell besamim, Motzei Shabbos, going into Yom Tov. In other words, Tosfos asked me, Shach, does Yom Tov have Neshama Yisera, or does Yom Tov not have Neshama Yisera? If Yom Tov has Neshama Yisera, you should smell besamim, Motzei Yom Tov. If Yom Tov does not have Neshama Yisera, you should smell besamim, Motzei Shabbos, going into Yom Tov. So Tosfos' opinion is, Yom Tov does not have Neshama Yisera, but the veal roast and the steak that your wife serves on Yom Tov, that takes the place of besamim. That's going to perk your mood. You don't need the good fragrance of besamim, because the good food is in the place of besamim. That's the opinion of Tosfos. Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev offers a different approach, a very beautiful approach to answer Tosfos' question. This is found in Kedushas Levi in his drush for Pesach. Says the Kedushas Levi, Avada on Yom Tov, you have a neshama yisera. Evidenced by the fact that people are capable of eating a lot on Yom Tov, just like they're capable of eating a lot on Shabbos. So Yom Tov has neshama yisera, and that's why Motzei Shabbos going into Yom Tov, you don't smell besamim. So why don't you smell besamim Motzei Yom Tov? After all, you lost the neshama yisera. So now we come to the question of the Arizal. The Ari has a very interesting question. The Arizal wants to know, why don't we have Isru Shabbos? We know we have Isru Chag. Why don't we have Isru Shabbos? Interesting question. Why don't we have Isru Shabbos? So the Arizal says that Kabbalistically, the Kedusha of Shabbos is so great that when it leaves, there's nothing you could do about it. We can't really relate to it to tie it down. And therefore, when it leaves, it leaves. The Kedusha of Yom Tov is on a lower plane, and therefore you're able to hold it back, and therefore we have a concept of Isru Chag. However, the Kedushas Levi offers a different interpretation why we have Isru Chag and we don't have Isru Shabbos. Says the Kedushas Levi, the difference between the two is found in the wording of their respective nuschos in davening. We know on Shabbos we say, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos. Blessed are you, God, you sanctify the Shabbos. And on Yom Tov we say, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. You sanctify Israel and the various times. Why on Shabbos do we say, Blessed are you, God, you sanctify Shabbos, and on Yom Tov we say, Blessed are you, God, you sanctify Israel and the various times? So the Kedushas Levi explains that the Kedusha of Shabbos is very different fundamentally to the Kedusha of Yom Tov. The Kedusha of Shabbos is heaven sent. It's called Kavi V'Kaima. It's established and set. Every single Friday, whether you're prepared or you're not prepared, whether you do anything, you don't do anything, Shabbos comes. God sends the Shabbos. God created the world in 6 days. He rested on the seventh. And the same Kedusha reoccurs every single week. And when the seventh day is over, Shabbos is over and the Kedusha has ended. And therefore, since the Kedusha of Shabbos is heaven sent, there's nothing really you could do to tie it down. There's nothing you could do to restrain it, because it's not our creation. God sends it and God takes it away. Every Shabbos, Hashem nasan v'Hashem lakach. He gives the Kedusha, He takes it away. Shabbos is Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos. Therefore, when Shabbos is over, we smell the besamim, because Shabbos is gone until it comes back next week. But Yom Tov is very different. The sanctity of Yom Tov is created by the Jewish people sanctifying the calendar. We make it Rosh Chodesh, we sanctify the new month, and when a certain number of days comes from the new month, it is holy. Who made it holy? We made it holy. Who made us holy? God invested Kedusha in us. Once He invested Kedusha in us, He made us holy, and we made the Yom Tov holy. So since we created the Kedusha of Yom Tov, therefore we could hold on to it. And that's the concept of Isru Chag, says Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev. Why do we have Isru Chag? Because since we made the Kedusha, we could hang on to the Kedusha. And that's the reason why when Yom Tov is over, you don't need to smell Besamim, because Yom Tov doesn't just vanish, it doesn't just dissipate, it doesn't go away. Because since we created it, we could hold on to it. That's the concept of Isru Chag. We could bind, we could tie down the Kedusha. Shabbos, there's no Isru Chag because we can't tie down to it. So therefore we have to smell the Besamim. That's the answer of the Kedushas Levi. And that gives us an insight into the role of Isru Chag, that because we were the ones who created the Kedusha, therefore we are able to hold on to the Kedusha. So I want to share with you an interesting question, and perhaps something that we've said could shed some further light on it. Is one supposed to have a Malava Malka Matzah Yom Tov? Say, who could even think of Malava Malka Matzah Yom Tov? On the other hand, you'll say, well, Minog Yisrael is to stay up, wait online for something called this triangular shaped object that has tomato sauce and cheese on it, and people think it was invented in Italy. This is a Jewish food. It was invented in Borough Park. And Minog Yisrael Kodesh is to wait hours and hours for raw pizza the night of Pesach. Why anybody in their right mind would ever wait online for any food? I have a principle in life. I don't wait for food. I don't, I like food, but I don't wait for it. So
you know that some communities raffle off the first pizza out of the pizza store, and it goes. I know one community was over $1,000 for tzedakah.
Okay. What could I say? But is there an inyan to have a Malava Malka on Yom Tov? It's not brought down in any poskim. Nowhere in the Shulchan Aruch or in the Magen Avram or in any of the Noisei Kelim is it brought to have Malava Malka on a Matzah Yom Tov. This in the Sefer Orchos Rabbeinu it brings the Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and he writes the same at the end of the time of the Qur'an. He says the Chazon Ish was noyeg to eat Malava Malka, also Matzah Yom Tov. And it's brought in the Siddur of Yaakov Emden. And the Stipler also is knowing this way. And the Chazon Ish said that why not? Of course, Matzah Yom Tov should be like Matzah Shabbos. In the Pninei Rabbeinu HaGriz, it brings, they asked the Griz if there's a Chi of Malava Malka Matzah Yom Tov. He says, I don't know why not. And Rav Schulzinger explained that he learned this from the Rambam. The Rambam says that the same way it's a mitzvah to mechabed shabbos v'ma'anigit any Yom Tov, there's a mitzvah to mekadesh it, and any Yom Tov that's called Mikra Kodesh. And what is kavod and oineg? Kavod and oineg is you set the table Matzah Shabbos, even though you only need a kazayas to be mechabed b'knisasai over yitziasai. So we see there's a chiyuv of kavod on Yom Tov, and part of kavod is to be malave out the holy day. And the Sar Shalom of Bells was makbid to have Malava Malka Matzah Yom Tov, and he says Malava Malka Matzah Shabbos is Suda of David. Malava Malka Matzah Yom Tov is the Suda of Shlomo HaMelech. However, I would argue that l'chayra there should not be an inyan of Malava Malka on Yom Tov, and that is on Shabbos where the Melech is out the door. He's going whether you like it or not, and there's nothing you could do to keep him back, and that's why you have to smell besamim. So there's an inyan of Malava Malka, escort the king out with food and drink. But if Yom Tov, there's a concept of Isru Chag, that you could hang on to the Kedusha, that means the Melech's not leaving yet. So the way you escort the melech out is like the Gemara says in Sukkah. You're malava it ba'achilo shtiya, not at night. He's not leaving at night. There's no reason. In a way, I could hear. Maybe it's disrespectful to make a malava malka matzah Yom Tif. That's like, if you invite your in-laws for Pesach and you make a goodbye party, the second Shabbos is over. I mean, that's not so nice. Well, what are you trying to say? We really loved having you, but here we're making you a goodbye party, and it's only lasting for 2 minutes, and now, by the way, here are your keys to your car. We already packed your suitcases for you. I mean, I don't know. How would you feel if somebody did that to you? So Shabbos, you don't have a choice. Shabbos tells you, I'm out the door. So what could you do? You got to make a Suda. But how could you make a Malava Malka Motzah Yom Tif? That's like, why are you sending out the Yom Tif? He's not ready to leave yet. The Yom Tif's sticking around for another day. You didn't say Lam Natseach today. By the way, I'm going to tell you another halacha. This really bothers me. This Thursday is still Nisan, and you're going to hear people when they take out the Sefer Torah, and they're going to say, "Vayivin Saya Arayin." What? What happened to Kelar Chapayim? Oh, there's no Tachnon. What are you talking about? Kelar Chapayim has nothing to do with Tachnon. It has to do with Lam Natseach. So today you didn't say Kelar Chapayim because you didn't say Lam Natseach. But Thursday, you be the guy who says Kelar Chapayim. Everyone's going to look at you. What are you doing? What planet did you land? And you're going to show, the Mishnah Berurah says that the laws of Kelar Chapayim are dependent on Lam Natseach. They're not dependent on Tachnon. Anyway, you didn't say Lam Natseach today because you're still hanging on to the Kedushas of Yom Tif. So why would you make a Malava Yom Tif if the Malka is still around? Now, one last idea from the Shem Shmuel, and then I want to tell you something specifically when it comes to the Yom Tif of Pesach. The Shem Shmuel, it's found on page Reish Chav. He brings, what's the concept of Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golios? We know that all things in this world need a middleman. You can't go from one extreme to the next. So there's a concept, you can't go from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael. We have Iver HaYarden, and you can't go from Lashon HaKodesh to other languages. There's a concept of Targum. There's also a concept of Zman, that you can't just go from Chayil to Kodesh or Kodesh to Chayil. You have to have an intermediary. So on the way into Yom Tif, the Mamutza is the preparation. The Hachanos for Yom Tif is the Emtsoi between weekday and Yom Tif. But on the outtake of Yom Tif, you need an Emtsoi between Yom Tif and Chayil. So Klal Yisrael has one day that sort of is the bridge between Yom Tif and Chayil, and that's Isru Chag. Isru Chag has a special Kedusha. Isru Chag is the day that we demonstrate extra hislavos for our tefillah, for our tefillin, for mitzvahs that we didn't have an opportunity to mekayim on Yom Tif itself. So that is the memutza between Yom Tif and the regular week. Now, B'Avnosenu Harabim in Golos, where there's so much darkness and the Choil is so distant and so far from the Kedusha, it's not enough to have Isru Chag, you need to have Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golios. In other words, the Shem Shmuel says the concept of Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golios is that in Eretz Yisrael you could go straight from Yom Tif to Isru Chag, and then to the Chol. But in Chutz La'aretz, the Chol is so dark, it's so tameh, that we need even a longer sort of bridge and emtsai between Yom Tif and the Yimei Chol. So you have Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golios, followed by Isru Chag, followed by the Chol. But we know, Rabbi Say, this is all by other Yomim Tovim. But when it comes to the Yom Tif of Pesach, just when you thought it was over, we realize we're just getting started. Why is that? We know that there are Daled Lashonos of Geula. V'hoitzeisi, v'yitzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lakachti. Hashem physically saved us from the work in Egypt, and then we left the physical premises of Egypt, and we had Kriyas Yamsuf, and we have this fourth Lashon of Geula, v'lakachti. V'lakachti refers to Kabbalas HaTorah. The Vilna Gaon says that in his opinion, V'lakachti is not the fourth lashon of Geula. Says the Gra, if V'lakachti is the fourth lashon of Geula, then V'hevesi should also be one of the lashonos of Geula. And nobody counts V'hevesi, says the Gra, if nobody counts V'hevesi, no one should count V'lakachti. You know why? Because just like going into Eretz Yisrael is not part of the redemption, Kabbalas HaTorah is not part of the redemption. So what are the Dal Lashonos Shel Geula? The Gra says, V'hoitzeisi, V'yitzalti, V'ga'alti, B'yad Chazaka, U'v'zroya Netuya. V'hoitzeisi, V'yitzalti, V'ga'alti, B'yad Chazaka, U'v'zroya Netuya. Rashi and Pesachim and the Rashbam and Pesachim and the Medrash Rabbah and the Yushalmi, they all say, V'hoitzeisi, V'yitzalti, V'ga'alti, V'lakachti, says the Gra, Taz, Sofer, B'chol, Makom. The printers corrupted Rashi, Rashbam, Medrash Rabbah, Yushalmi. They're all wrong. They all are misprints. And that's very difficult to say. You have to be a Gra to have the courage to say that all of these sources are misprints. And therefore, certainly it is worthwhile to try to give an explanation for the classic understanding of the Dal Lashonos of Geula, namely, V'hoitzeisi, V'yitzalti, V'ga'alti, V'lakachti. And the simple and straightforward way to explain this is that while going into Eretz Yisrael is a great gift, it's not part of the redemption. The giving of the Torah is part of the redemption. Because the kavanah of the Mitzrim was not just to enslave us and to work us, but as the pasuk says, and we darshan in the Haggadah, Vayareu Isanu HaMitzrim, they dealt harshly with us, they did bad to us. The Nesivos interprets it. Their machshava was to make us sin, to make us ra. Vayareu, they wanted us to be ra. And they placed on us Sarei Misim. Sarei Misim is Gematria, Bittul Torah. And they wanted to be Vayamaru es Chayeyem. The Al-Shich says, what's the life of a Jew? Kihem Chayenu v'orchem. They wanted to be Mavatos from Torah. The Marsha says the gratitude we have for Yetzias Mitzrayim is now we have the opportunity to pursue Shleimus, perfection of soul, character, pursue Torah. So the giving of the Torah was not just a matana that Klal Yisrael merited in the aftermath of Yetzias Mitzrayim, but the giving of the Torah was part and parcel of the very redemption of Mitzrayim. That was part of the Geula itself. As Rebbeinu Shalom tells Moshe Rabbeinu, B'hoitziacha es ha'ami Mitzrayim, tavdun es ha'olekim al harazeh. The sign that I'm going to take you out of Mitzrayim is that you're going to serve me on this mountain. That me taking you out of Mitzrayim is the ois that you'll be mekabel the Torah. That means the ikar is kabbalas haTorah. As the Sefer HaChinuch writes, V'hi ha'ikar v'asiba sheniglu v'yatzim Mitzrayim. Kol ikaron shel Yisrael eino ela haTorah. And that is why as soon as we left Mitzrayim, we immediately started counting. Okay, let's count until we get to... What do you mean? I thought you were counting to get out. You know, most people, if you would ask, what was the great countdown? You would have thought the countdown would have been to the freedom. No. Once they were free, that's when the countdown began. Because the tachlis of Yetzias Mitzrayim was Kabbalas HaTorah. V'hoitzeisi, yes, we stopped working. V'hitzalti, we left the premises of Egypt. V'ga'alti, we were redeemed with Kriyas Yamsuf. But the Geula was not complete until V'lakachti Kabbalas HaTorah. That's part of the Geula. We're not nigal until the Torah was given. Therefore, even though technically Pesach is over, but we know the famous words of the Ramban in Parshas Emor, that the days in between Pesach and Shavuos are like Chol HaMoed, where Pesach and Shavuos is like one long Yom Tif. The same way Atzeres after Sukkot is one long Yom Tif, even though Shmi Atzeres is Regel B'fnei Atzmei, but it is fused into Shvi Shel Pesach, Shvi Shel Sukkot. So too, even though, yes, we're done with Pesach, but we're just starting. Now's Chol Hamoed. Chol Hamoed begins. That's why the moment the second day of Pesach comes, we start counting, because even though these are independent Chagim, but there's one program here. We're now in the long Yom Tif that starts with Pesach and ends with Kabbalas HaTorah. So certainly today is tied down to the Yom Tif. Anyone who's Misameach Hayoim Ba'achila, and as the Chasam Sofer says, it's a simcha that we were zoicha to celebrate the Yom Tif. And today, according to the Aruch HaShulchan, is the second day of the Achila Shlomim. If the Beis Hamikdash were standing, that we would be able to eat the Shlomim. But even Bizman Hazeh, according to Chasam Sofer, it's a simcha that we were zoicha to keep the Yom Tif. And as Igor de Pirko says, we try to materialize and concretize all of our machshavos and all of our desires for ruchnius over Yom Tif. We try to put into chayfetz on this day of Isru Chag, but especially this time, this particular Yom Tif, which doesn't really end, but is just merely sort of the first days of the great Yom Tif, the 50-day Yom Tif that ends with Kabbalas HaTorah. So we continue on this great program of yearning for the day, as the Machon Maggid says, Sama nafshi lelokim lekeil chai. My soul thirsts for the living God. Keil is 31. Chai is 18. These are the 49 days of Sfira. Keil chai. Sama nafshi lelokim lekeil chai. The days of Sfira are a thirst for the living God, for the Rebbeinu Shalom. Masai avai ve'eroa pnei Elokim. We yearn to, so to speak, behold the countenance of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the 50th day, the day of Matan Torah, the day we're all awaiting and yearning for. So we should be zoicha, that the Rebbeinu Shalom should be mashpia on us all of the great oiros and hashpais of the Yom Tov of Pesach, of the Yemei HaSfira, and the Zmanim that we are traversing through. Thanks everyone for joining, and Bez Hashem, Rebbeinu Shalom should give us siyata d'shmaya for a new Zman of Chidush and Eschadshus, and Bracha v'Hatzlacha lanu l'chol Yisrael. Amen. Amen. Have a good day, everyone. Kol Tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.